Hi everyone, I'm Selka Bico from Group B and I will be reporting Module 7, Monitoring and Evaluating Social Marketing and Social Mobilization Programs, specifically the use of quantitative approach in evaluating social marketing and social mobilization program. For the learning objective, at the end of this report, fellow students will be able to effectively use quantitative approach in monitoring and evaluating their social marketing and social mobilization program. So let's get started. There are three types of quantitative approach which can be used to collect data. These are the cross-sectional study, cohort, and pre-post quasi-experimental. Let's tackle each of them. Our first type of study is called the cross-sectional. So what is a cross-sectional study? A cross-sectional study is an observational study design that examines data on various variables gathered at a single time point within a sample population or predefined subgroup, offering a depiction of the population's characteristics. It is a time saving, cost effective, and straightforward approach for gathering preliminary data wherein researcher collects data at a single point in time. There is no prospective or retrospective follow up and observes variables without influencing them. The purpose of a cross sectional study is basically to take a slice or a snapshot of a population. In the field of public health research, cross sectional studies are used to evaluate associations. Example, association between exposure and disease, and to compare disease and symptoms rates between an exposed group and unexposed group. Another purpose of a cross-sectional study is to simultaneously describe multiple characteristics. For instance, it can be employed to explore whether factors like excessive screen time, social media use, or resulting social pressures are linked to specific outcomes such as anxiety. While such studies cannot establish a causal link and do not quantify a variable, they can highlight a relationship that might be worth further investigation. Now, let's delve into the key characteristics of a cross sectional study. Cross sectional studies examine a fixed set of variables within a specific time frame. Researchers use the same measuring tools and data points throughout their investigation. Although different cross sectional studies may focus on the same variable of interest, they do so by observing distinct group of subjects. Each study captures a fresh set of participants. It also analyzes focus on a single point in time marked by a clear starting and stopping point. Researchers can zero in on a single independent variable while also accommodating one or more dependent variables in their examination. These studies can map the prevailing variables that coexist at a specific point in time. Now let's move on to the advantages and disadvantages of cross-functional study. For its advantages, cross-sectional study are relatively quick and inexpensive to conduct. No potential ethical issues, multiple outcomes, and exposures can be studied. Helpful for generating hypotheses. Many findings can be used to create an in depth research study. Data are obtained from a large pool of subjects, and differences between groups can be compared. For its disadvantages, it cannot measure incidence. Deriving causal inferences is challenging as it is one time measurement of the apparent cause and effect. Associations identified might be difficult to interpret, cannot determine temporal relations between outcomes and risk factors, susceptible to biases, and cannot be used to analyze trends over a period of time. It is also important to know the limitations of cross sectional studies. Here are some important limitations. A cross sectional study is a one time measurement of exposure and outcome. Therefore, it does not determine cause and effect relationships. Such studies are prone to certain biases, report bias, because surveys and questionnaires might not result in accurate reporting, and sampling bias owing to need to select a sample subjects from a large and heterogeneous study population. Researchers need to be extremely careful about interpreting and associations and directions of associations from cross-sectional studies. It provides it does not provide information from before or after the data were obtained. Cross-sectional studies cannot be used to analyze behavior or trends over time. Steps for cross-sectional study. You need to take the four steps of cross-sectional study. First is to choose the problem and analyze it. You need to consider this step by asking the question, what is the problem and why should it be studied? Some important elements to consider for this step are problem identification, prioritizing problem, and problem analysis. Second would be the literature review. For this step, you need to ask the question, what information is already available, and some elements to consider are literature and other available information. Third step would be formulation of objectives. Ask the question, what do we hope to achieve? And some elements to consider are general and specific objectives and hypotheses. Last and fourth step would be research methodology, where you need to ask what data do we need to meet our objectives and how will it be collected. Some important elements to consider are sampling, variables, data collection techniques, plan for data collection, processing, analysis, and ethics pilot study. Here's an illustration of cross-sectional study where it shows that data are collected at one point in time and group are compared at the same time. For your appreciation, here's another illustration showing cross-sectional study, and an example is a study of a certain disease. Showing here a snapshot of the study, you can see groups equally divided into two, marked in red and green. The red group are considered exposed and the green group unexposed. After a period of time, you will gather the data totaling how many were sick from the group of exposed and unexposed overpopulation. That's how cross-sectional study is done. To summarize learnings on cross-sectional study, you must remember that cross-sectional study is a type of observational research design that involves collecting data from a group of participants at a single point in time to assess various characteristics or variable of interest. The primary goal of a cross-sectional study is to describe the prevalence of a specific condition or characteristics within a defined population at a particular moment in time. Cross-sectional studies are relatively quick and cost-effective. They are useful for generating hypotheses and identifying potential research direction. Cross-sectional studies do not allow researchers to track changes over time, making them unsuitable for studying temporal relationships. They cannot establish cause and effect relationship. So remember this. Now let's move to the second type of study, which is cohort. So what is a cohort study? Cohort studies are type of research design. They are also called longitudinal studies because they follow groups of people over time. Results from cohort studies can help people understand human health and the environmental and social factors that influence it. The word cohort means group of people. Cohort studies can be forward looking or backward looking. A forward looking cohort study is also known as a prospective cohort study. Prospective means that it relates to the future. Backward a backward looking cohort study is also called a retrospective cohort study. Retrospective means that it relates to the past. Cohort studies are a powerful tool for conducting research in human populations. People in cohort studies typically share some characteristics such as their location or age. How to use it? So, researchers recruit participants in a variety of ways. They may contact people at random from a birth register or by postal address, for example. When people join a cohort study, the researchers gather data about them to get a more detailed picture of the group they are studying. Researchers ask questions to find out the demographics or characteristics such as age, race of the group. They may also gather other information on the following factors: biological, social, psychological, medical, environmental, and genetic. This information forms the baseline for the study. Then later, researchers collect data from different points in the participants' lives. This is known as the follow up period. The follow up period could be weeks, months, or years. By comparing data from the follow up points to the baseline, researchers can see how different factors have affected the group members' health. For example, in epidemiology, which is the study of disease, scientists use cohort studies to identify potential risk factors that drive disease or influence disease patterns. Cohort studies are also good at finding relationships between health and environmental factors such as chemicals in air, water, and food. These are issues that the World Health Organization trusted sources helps researchers investigate with large-scale cohort studies. Types of cohort studies. For a prospective cohort studies, researchers involve recruiting a group of participants and following them over time to gather new data. Researchers identify a topic they want to study, they then design the study and recruit the participants that will best help them study the topic. For example, if they wanted to study rates of heart disease in older age, they would choose an age group of younger adults with similar characteristics who do not have heart disease to use as their baseline. The second type is the retrospective cohort study, where it involve using pre-existing data. Researchers analyze a group of people who already have certain characteristics. They then look at existing data for jump back in time. For example, they might look at a group of older adults with heart disease. Then they would analyze data about the group members' medical history to see what factors could have contributed. Here's another illustration of cohort study for your appreciation, where participants are divided into two groups, exposed and not exposed. Then after time passes, they will compare results. Here are the and disadvantages of cohort studies. Cohort studies are one of the most robust forms of medical research. They are well suited to identifying causes of disease because they look at groups of people before they develop an illness. This means scientists can examine whether there might be cause and effect between people's lifestyle choices and health outcomes. Another advantage can it can collect a wide variety of data that researchers can use in many ways. A study on the impact of smoking, for example, might reveal links with multiple types of disease. Researchers can also assess how risky a factor is in comparison with others. And for its disadvantages, more time consuming and often more expensive than other types of studies, less well suited to finding clues about rare disease since these do not develop in a large number of people, potentially prone to bias if participants drop out of the study over time, or if researchers select an unrepresentative group of people unable to explore how or why a factor is associated with a disease. So for this, experimental studies are necessary. To summarize, cohort studies are one of the most powerful tools researchers have to understand human health. They involve following groups of people for long periods of time and examining trends in the data. These trends can be important for identifying causes and risk factors for diseases. A cohort studies have several limitations and can be more time consuming compared to cross sectional studies. Let's move on to another study design, which is pre and post research or the quasi experimental design. So, what is quasi experimental design? A quasi experimental design is a research method used to estimate causal relationships between random assignment. Unlike true experiments, participants are not randomly assigned to conditions, but the researcher still manipulates an independent variable. This design is often used when random assignment is impractical. Example, time series design where measurement are taken multiple times before and after a treatment to observe changes over time. And pre-test and post-test design where participants are measured before and after receiving a treatment to assess changes. Another definition, the term quasi means resembling experimental research, but does not imply that quasi experimental method is true experimental research. Pre-test and post-test research is one of the many forms of quasi experimental design. Pre-test and post-test research methods have been used in many fields, including medicine, nursing, health, mental health, and education. The method has remained in common use because it is a rapid, convenient method to assess a target group to which an intervention has been applied. In addition to being a convenient research method, pre-test and post-test design allows for statistical analysis of data using established statistical methods. Pre-test and post-test design based on purposeful sampling allows for assessment of specific representatives of a population of interest, but not of the population as a whole. For example, one wishes to evaluate the effect of a simulation session on the knowledge of a disaster emergency medical team. That team can be included as the participants in the simulation exercise, in which a pre-test and post-test is used to evaluate results. But the results from such an evaluation are only valid for the team tested and not other emergency medical team. In the 1960s, the validity of quasi experimental design came into question with a number of papers published that evaluated the various forms of this type of research. Since that time, limitations of pre post test study design have been identified. Some of the disadvantages are the use of testing in itself may add bias to a study. A pretest will likely sensitize those taking it to the test itself and alert participants to the limited material required to score better on a post-test rather than acquiring adequate general knowledge for the subject of interest. This is particular problem when the pretest and post-test are same or similar. Pre-testing allows for participants to become more familiar with terminology and allows for ease in taking and scoring higher on a post-test. Another limitation of pre-test and post-test design is the phenomenon of statistical regression or the tendency of a group to move to a common mean as an artifact of repeated testing. In other words, those that scored poorly on pre-testing have nowhere to go but up in score, and those that scored high in pre-testing have nowhere to go but down in score of the post-test. Methods to improve validity of pre and post study. One strategy is to select a target group and randomly select a group of study participants and randomly select a group of controls. Both the study group and control group would then take the pre-test and post-test at the same time interval, with only the study group receiving the intervention. Example, a simulation session. Comparing testing scores for the second and control group addresses some limitation inherent in testing validity. Another method to improve validity is to design a study with a pre-test, immediate post-test, and later post-test, usually 6 months following the intervention, to allow for consideration of learning or attitude decay and on ongoing external stimulation, using different questions relative to the general knowledge acquisition or attitude on a pre-test and post-test will also improve validity. Third is the application of statistical tests for evaluation or pre-test and post-test results should be appropriate. Essential is the use of 25% and 75% quartiles for ordinal data median, such as Likert scale data, and 95% confidence intervals for means and proportions, while probability statistics such as t-test and chi-square analysis may show statistical significance, overlapping of the ranges in measures of central tendency. Confidence intervals or quartiles of the mean and median show a lack of clinical significance and poor practical application for research results. To illustrate quasi-experiment, we have the experiment and control groups. First, both groups will undergo pretest and experiment group will undergo treatment while the other group will not. Then both groups will eventually take the post-test prior to data analysis. In summary, the quasi-experimental design has been a common research method for centuries. Pre-test and post-test design is a form of quasi-experimental research that allows for the uncomplicated assessment of an intervention applied to a group of study participants. Validity of pre-test and post-test studies is difficult to achieve as the research design has inherent flaws, but strategies such as use of randomization, limiting internal and external bias, and appropriate application of basic statistics allow a researcher to make associations in outcome measures with this popular study design. Now, let's discuss the Seoul City Institute for Health and Development program by Dr. Renee Weiner, where the three types of study under quantitative approach were used: the cross-sectional, cohort, and quasi-experiment as an alternative study designs to evaluate and monitor impact of their health program through communication. They use cross-sectional analytic through exposure to Seoul City measured impact compared on exposed and non-exposed, close response relationship, measured reverse causality, need to control confounders. They use cohort through follow-up same group over time, impact compared in exposed and non-exposed. Then pre-post quasi-experimental was also used through baseline of comparison. To summarize, take note that each of these study designs, cross-sectional, cohort, and quasi-experimental, plays a crucial role in monitoring and evaluating social marketing programs depending on the objectives, available resources, and required depth of analysis. In monitoring and evaluation, cross-sectional study helps identify current public awareness and perceptions of a campaign, provides a snapshot behavior adoption across different demographic groups, helpful in assessing the immediate effects of a campaign but cannot determine causality. Example, a survey measuring public awareness of a certain campaign program in different cities at a single time. And it is best for quick assessments of knowledge and attitudes. Its limitations, it cannot track changes over time. For cohort studies, it tracks long-term effects of a campaign, helps assess changes in behavior and retention rates over time. It is useful in evaluating health interventions. Example, tracking a group of individuals over 5 years to see if campaign is effective. It is best for long-term behavior and health impact evaluations. Limitation, expensive, and time-consuming. For quasi-experimental design, it measures cause and effect relationships when randomization is not possible. Compares pre and post intervention data in different groups or location. Example, assessing the impact of a campaign by comparing them in cities where the campaign was implemented versus those it was not. It is best for measuring program impact without randomization, and its limitation is less control over confounding factor. Please see references for this report. For our discussion, in your future social marketing program, which study type of quantitative approach for monitoring and evaluation, or M&E, will you use? Explain why. That ends my report. I hope you can effectively use the quantitative approach in monitoring and evaluating your social marketing and social mobilization program in the future. Thank you.